Day. Not really saving the climate here, AOC, if you're using all of that jet fuel.
Come on. Double standards?
Oh, my goodness. AOC and I have a long history. 5 years ago, when I hinted that I would vote for Trump over Bernie Sanders, she tore me apart. And she's always been a raging hypocrite. Remember a couple years ago, she wore this designer-made dress to the Met Gala at the same time that she's masquerading as a woman of the people. She claims to be a Democratic...
Picture this. AOC sidestepping tough questions like she's caught in a viral TikTok dance, smiling, spinning, trying to keep rhythm while dodging the heat. But then boom, enter Lindy Lee, wielding rhetorical chairs like she just got tagged into a WWE SmackDown. It goes from activist open mic night to verbal courtroom drama faster than you can say committee hearing. AOC's polished poise starts slipping, like she just blanked on her own script mid-scene. Lindy didn't just challenge her, she delivered a 7-course meal of cold, hard reality checks. No filters, no fluff. Grab your popcorn, this showdown gets real.
On private jets and is wearing a cap in first class because she doesn't want to be recognized. And then Bernie Sanders, I mean, come on, this is a guy who went to communist Russia and purports to be a man of the people, yet he's using the hard-earned money, this hard-working money of everyday Americans around the country to fly.
If you're enjoying this ride, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It does more heavy lifting than you'd think. Now, Lindy Lee must have rolled out of bed, downed a triple shot of espresso strong enough to wake the dead, and declared, "No one's getting a free pass today." And guess who landed squarely in her crosshairs? AOC. This wasn't a civil disagreement or a clever jab, it was a rhetorical demolition derby, and AOC was the shiny new car that wandered into the wrong arena. No airbags, no warning. Words flew like shrapnel, and the aftermath? Let's just say AOC's confidence took a hit, and everyone saw the sparks.
Since I got elected, Republicans have attacked me by saying that I should go back to bartending. But let me tell you, I'm happy to any day of the week because there is nothing wrong with working for a living. Imagine having leaders in the White House who understand.
AOC stood her ground like she always does. Sharp hand gestures, theatrical pauses, and that signature, "How dare you" glare. But Lindy Lee wasn't buying the performance. She didn't just show up, she stormed in like a rhetorical wrecking ball, and honestly, even Miley Cyrus might have taken notes. Every time AOC tried to mount a defense, it backfired, fuel for Lindy to launch another precision strike, each line slicing through the noise like a samurai blade. The harder AOC tried to regain control, the more the spotlight shifted, and not in her favor.
They spent $1 billion.
If my donors had known that in advance, they wouldn't have given. This is just ridiculous, and I'm sorry to say that. Well, every time I criticize something, I can just hear, I can just feel the knives being thrown in my back.
Picture AOC standing her ground, insisting she was misunderstood, as if gaslighting an entire audience could somehow make the mountain of receipts disappear, receipts stacking up like unpaid parking tickets on a windshield. She ducked, denied, and deflected with the flair of someone auditioning for a Broadway revival. But this wasn't Hamilton, this was political improv gone wrong. The more she talked, the deeper the quicksand pulled her in. It was like watching someone argue with their own shadow in a spotlight and still manage to lose. Painful? Yes, but you couldn't look away.
Because it's like a very insular community, but again, at this point in my life, we're not allowed to curse here, right? I don't care. This is just the right thing to do. This reminds me of the PPP program through which Kanye got a few $1 million, and I love Tom Brady, but come on, Tom Brady doesn't need taxpayer money. This is just, can you imagine people giving $25 or $50, and it means so much.
Lindy Lee didn't just call AOC out, she rolled up like a one-woman fact-checking SWAT team. Armed with receipts, screenshots, timestamps, and enough contradictions to fill a Netflix docuseries, She laid out an entire season's worth of plot holes in AOC's political storyline. And then, she dissected them with the precision of a caffeine-fueled surgeon on a mission. This wasn't your average debate. It was a roast meets cross-examination hybrid that felt more like a courtroom drama than a political exchange. You could practically hear that law and order done every time Lindy delivered another brutal fact drop. Meanwhile, AOC tried to keep her cool. You know that look people get when they say they're unbothered, but their eye is twitching like it's trying to blink out an SOS in Morse code? Yeah, that was her. She doubled down on the denials, stacking them like sandbags in a flood, but Lindy Lee was the rising tide. With each rebuttal, Lindy morphed into a human lie detector, lighting up red every time AOC swore it wasn't true. If this had been a game show, it wouldn't have just been a win, it would have been a windmill dunk, followed by a buzzer-beating three-pointer, all while staring down the camera. AOC walked in expecting a polite policy chat and ended up in a tribal council firestorm, wondering when the game even started.
One of the only people in this body who has lived off of tips. I want to tell you a little bit about the scam of that text, a little bit of the fine print there. The cap on that is $25,000. While you're jacking up taxes on people who make less than $50,000 across the United States, while taking away their SNAP, while taking away their Medicaid, while kicking them off of the ACA and their healthcare extensions. So if you're at home and you're living off tips, you do the math.
Lindy Lee wasn't just firing off shots. She was delivering a masterclass in verbal takedowns, blending razor-sharp sarcasm with surgical precision. It wasn't just a burn, it was a slow-burning sting that refused to fade. You could practically see AOC's mind racing, mentally rewriting her resume on the spot, wondering if Trader Joe's was hiring because suddenly, politics looked less like her passion and more like a regrettable career choice. But credit where it's due, AOC didn't back down without a fight. She spun, deflected, and reached deep into her political toolbox, only to pull out something closer to a rubber chicken than a wrench. Each attempt grew more desperate, like trying to patch a dam with duct tape, only to realize the duct tape was really just a flimsy post-it note. The classic, "you're being unfair" defense fell flatter than a forgotten soda left open overnight. Lindy didn't flinch. Instead, she doubled down with a retort so sharp it could slice through steel. Never mean, always surgical, hitting right at the core of the nonsense. And, just like that, AOC stopped being the star of the show. She became the punchline.
Again, you would know this better than anyone else, so why don't you tell us what the hell is going on and how we got here?
You really can't make this shit up. These sorts of things, these boondoggles, that goes right into the pockets of consultants, by the way. And it's the same group of people. They move from one campaign to the next. It doesn't matter if they win or lose, they're still going to cash that paycheck. And that's why they had like advertising down here in ruby red.
The irony here is thick enough to cut with a knife. AOC built her entire brand on fiery speeches, bold declarations, and unshakable confidence. But when faced with someone equally fierce, equally fearless, and infinitely better prepared, she folded faster than a cheap lawn chair under a summer heat wave. It was like watching a magician dazzle the crowd with rabbits pulled from hats, only for Lindy Lee to stroll on stage and reveal the hidden trapdoor to the entire audience. What makes this even juicier? Lindy Lee wasn't just tearing AOC down for kicks. She was speaking for everyone who's ever rolled their eyes at the tangled web of contradictions, the half-truths, and the flat-out delusions. It was real-time catharsis, raw and unfiltered. If AOC thought she could bluff her way out, she seriously underestimated her opponent. Watching her unravel was like catching a reality TV star mid-meltdown. The cameras keep rolling after the perfect take. No edits, no filters, no spin. And Lindy? She was director, editor, and audience all wrapped into one, savoring every moment of the meltdown. The energy in the room shifted, and you could feel it.
Final straw, the moment that I knew that I needed to leave was actually around Christmas Eve. When the chair of the party, he's the biggest clown that the Democratic Party has ever, like honestly, in recent history, I can't think of a more incompetent boob than this man. And if you just look at him,
Pretty bad to be an incompetent boob. That's not good. DNC Chair Rob, can you pull up which one are you talking?
Lindy didn't just fire shots, she dropped a verbal nuke and casually walked away without so much as a glance at the fallout. Meanwhile, AOC was left standing in the smoke, desperately trying to explain why none of it mattered. Spoiler alert, it all counted. Every word, every contradiction, every glaring inconsistency was laid bare. The funniest part? AOC genuinely believed she could outlast the storm. She clung to her defense like someone clutching an umbrella in the middle of a hurricane, utterly convinced it would keep her dry. Except the umbrella was flipped inside out, the wind was mocking her, and Lindy Lee was the hurricane itself. Every sentence AOC managed to form was instantly swept away, replaced by Lindy's thunderous rebuttals, precise, unrelenting, like guided missiles hitting their target. At first, denial seemed to fuel her fire, but the flames only grew higher, consuming any hope of escape. It turned into a spectacle, AOC battling a mountain of receipts so massive it deserved its own zip code. And with every denial, the pile got taller, as if Lindy was casually conjuring fresh evidence from thin air.
They don't care if the candidate wins, they're still going to make that dollar. And so they're spending $20 million on some sort of anthropological study of American men. Why don't they actually go out there and meet them?
Yeah, talk to them, get to know them, understand.
Exactly.
Imagine AOC reaching out for a lifeline, only to find the person on the other end is holding scissors, ready to cut it without hesitation. That was the vibe. Hopeless, trapped in a corner, scrambling to pivot, and hoping no one was paying attention. She'd switch topics mid-sentence like a magician trying to pull a rabbit out of an empty hat. But Lindy? Oh, she noticed. Every pivot was caught, every dodge blocked, every spin unraveled like a sweater with a loose thread. It was like trying to hide a marching band behind a curtain. You hear the noise, you see the outlines, and no one's buying it. What made it even more hysterical was the confidence AOC had while denying everything. Lindy played along just long enough to let the irony settle. By the time she was done, AOC's denials sounded less like defenses and more like punchlines. There's something poetic about watching someone so obsessed with crafting an untouchable image get stripped bare, contradictions flashing like neon signs in real time. AOC has built her brand on fiery passion, sharp intellect, and always being the smartest one in the room until now.
Sense from like AOC that he should be impeached is just absurd. Absurd. There's no... Okay, get back to me when you've read the Constitution or get a law degree, because you sound like an absolute fucking idiot. There is absolutely no ground to impeach the president. He 100% was within his constitutional authority and his congressionally authorized authority to do what he did on Saturday. Okay, but as for whether it's a good idea, that's a debate we should be having. And look, you know, if we could get congressional approval of the specific action, fine, I'm okay with that too. If you want to bring it to Congress, go ahead and see how that goes. I don't think it's necessary, but go for it.
But in this room, AOC wasn't just outmatched, she wasn't even the most prepared. Lindy showed up like she'd crammed for the final exam weeks in advance, while AOC looked like she'd completely forgotten there was a test to begin with. And the audience? Their reactions were priceless, a collective gasp here, a barely stifled chuckle there, and those unmistakable side eyes screaming, "Did she really just say that?" It was the perfect backdrop to AOC's slow, unraveling performance. Even those who weren't exactly Lindy fans couldn't help but be entertained. It was like watching someone stubbornly claim the earth as flat, while standing smack dab on a spinning globe, utterly fascinating, utterly ridiculous, and absolutely impossible to look away from. What replaced AOC's confidence was a nervous energy thinly veiled as poise. She repeated the same denials over and over, as if sheer repetition might magically turn doubt into truth. Spoiler alert, it didn't. It sounded like a bad remix of a song no one wanted to hear again. Meanwhile, Lindy's tones stayed razor-sharp and unyielding. The contrast was so stark, you could practically feel the imbalance of power ripple through the room like an electric current. And then came the breaking point, the exact moment AOC realized she had run out of moves, and spinning the story any further was no longer an option. You could see it flash across her face like a lightning strike, that brief, unmistakable look of, "Oh no, I'm cooked." But, of course, admitting defeat wasn't on the table. Instead, she reached for the classic fallback, the cool smirk, the nonchalant shrug, the "this doesn't matter" act. We've all seen it before. The move designed to convince everyone, including yourself, that you're untouchable. Except it mattered. Oh, did it matter? And everyone in the room knew it. The harder she tried to act indifferent, the clearer it became that she cared deeply, desperately. It's almost poetic, the self-proclaimed queen of clapbacks reduced to stumbling over mumbling excuses, crushed beneath the weight of Lindy's meticulously laid-out receipts. By the time Lindy delivered her final, razor-sharp point, AOC wasn't just defeated, she was exposed. Not in a scandalous headline kind of way, but in a deeply humiliating, caught red-handed, still denying sort of way. And that's the worst kind of loss, it lingers. People forget scandals, but they never forget the moment someone gets roasted so thoroughly they can't even muster a comeback. The kicker? Lindy didn't even need to gloat. No triumphant celebration, no victory lap. She landed the final blow, let the silence stretch out like thick fog, and walked away, as if this brutal takedown was just another Tuesday. That's when you know the game was over long before the final whistle blew.
Out of bounds. Your mom, and how soon was it after the election? Like
a week or two. When it wasn't at that point, I was just asking questions. Like it wasn't even. I was like, what happened to the $2.5 billion we raised? Why did we spend it on Beyonce? Why did we spend 2.5? Why did we spend millions of dollars on Oprah? Like legitimate questions that needed to be answered. But the amount of hate I got for that was just overwhelming.
AOC might have walked off stage wearing a mask of calm, pretending everything was fine, but anyone watching saw the real story unfold. She was dragged, piece by piece, across the spotlight, dismantled in real time, transformed into the very thing she's spent so long trying to avoid, a punchline. The sting wasn't just in the moment. Lindy Lee didn't simply win the battle. She left AOC's reputation bruised, her confidence rattled, and her audience questioning the legend. Suddenly, whispers started. Maybe the emperor really does have no clothes. By the end, it wasn't a contest. It was a highlight reel of AOC's worst nightmare on full display. Lindy Lee didn't just take the win. She rewrote the scoreboard, ripped out the wires, and lit the whole stadium on fire, just for good measure. And here's the kicker. Lindy didn't rely on flashy theatrics or grandstanding. Her power came from facing someone who simply refused to buy the act. That's why Lindy Lee's name echoed long after AOC's excuses faded into the background noise.